I'm still vibrating from my meeting yesterday. I call it a meeting. That's when I went down to the Occupy Toronto Insight outdoor latrine sort of festival just a few blocks away from our studios here. And there was some really weird psychology that I saw. Now, John Robson, who joins us now from Ottawa, is a PhD. He's not a psychologist, but he's got an awful lot of common sense. John, thanks for joining us here today.
My pleasure.
I wanted to. I'm not asking you to make a therapeutic, diagnosis of the psychology or psychiatry of people. I'm not asking you to be a doctor. I'm asking you to help figure out, just politically or personality-wise, what's going on with some of the, I'm going to say it, cult-like behavior. Let me show our viewers what I mean. In all these Occupy sit-ins around the continent, they have a strange ritual, sort of call and repeat, sort of like a grown-up Simon Says. You can see a clip of it here in New York. So the leader says something, and everyone chants the exact words back to him, and everyone is forced to say the exact same words of the leader, like a big army of ants. That was a shot from New York. Here's a shot from Seattle. And I saw this yesterday in Toronto. I'll show you my clip in a minute, John, because I want to laugh about it with you. But what do you make of that total robotic, obedient part of the Borg? I mean, and this is from Atlanta here. This is clearly an official procedure. What does it mean?
Well, I think we are seeing an outburst of rather alarming tribalism here, that there's a desire to have a sense of belonging, and particularly given the point that a number of people have made that this movement seems to be intellectually incoherent. The compulsion that its members have to line up together behind nothing and shout it back is extraordinary. I was watching one of these clips on YouTube where this, veteran sociologist, protester type was giving a speech, and they repeated everything. At one point she said something, they repeated it, then she went, well, and they all went, well. Like, what, I mean, there's no brainwave activity. And in fact, it did remind me of something Eric Hoffer wrote about the true believer, that he said that belief in a cause is to a considerable extent a substitute for lost faith in oneself. And that these are people who are trying desperately to be part of something, even though there's nothing there. And I tell you, I've always found chanting disquieting. And I remember watching, this was years ago, with the Nicaraguan Sandinistas, and they had this tendency to stand and chant, no pasaran, and raise their right hand in a disquieting echo of things done decades earlier. But at least there was some kind of focus to what they were doing. This is weird. They will repeat anything, and you can see on YouTube some things I can't even say on the air that they would repeat. Like, there's a complete surrender of personality, which is not ever a good thing, and it's especially not a good thing when you're surrendering it to the mental void. Yeah. Now, I was down there for about an hour yesterday, and I thought I would give it a try. And they call this, they don't call it Simon Says or call and repeat, they call it the human microphone or something like that. And you start by saying, mic check, and that's sort of the cue to everybody to get into zombie mode. And even though by this point they hated me, they were demanding I leave, they were demanding I clean up their toilets, they were pushing me around, all I had to do was sort of say the secret password, mic check, and they started repeating everything I said, John, and I started to criticize them, but they repeated my criticisms of them. I want to roll the clip. By the way, I use a swear word here, so if you have tender ears, turn down your volume. Let me show you what I did yesterday, John. Mic check.
Come with me over here.
Mic check. Mic check.
See what you're doing?
Mic check.
See what you're doing?
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Do you always kick people out who disagree with you? Or tell them that they have to clean up your shit, even though I don't shit in the park. I mean, John, remember, these people had just been shouting at me for half an hour, telling me to leave the park, or that if I stayed, I had to clean up their latrine. And I'm sorry I swore there. But just by doing that, Simon Says, by declaring myself the leader and demanding that they repeat what I said, they did it, John. I know. So you reminded me of that scene in The Life of Brian where he's trying to get the crowd to go away. And he gets, I am an individual. And they all shout, I am an individual. And one guy at the back says, I'm not.
But it also has this very childish quality, right? This is something that you could understand how this could get a grip on fifth graders. And again, reminded that episode of Star Trek where they come to a planet where whenever the kids grow up, they go crazy. And when they hear something they don't like, they all start going, na, 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 to drown it out. I mean, this amplifies it, but at the same time, it drowns it out because there's no engagement with it. You know, this is almost the opposite of one of those sermons in the kind of churches where they do that call and repeat, where they're following the logic of the minister and they're agreeing with him, and it can be very powerful spiritually and intellectually. This is utterly mindless, and it's willfully mindless. And again, this kind of tribalism. I have another Eric Hoffer when he talks about when you're listening to the frustrated as they decry the present and all its works, surprising the enormous joy they derive from doing it. That there's a really unhealthy enthusiasm in this process whereby they surrender their critical faculties to the movement.
We're almost out of time, John, but I do want to run one more clip, and it's from a live stream webcast that these hippies did. I mean, these are high-tech hippies because the big labor unions have brought in power generators, computers, organizers. But a couple of them were talking about how they were sort of running away from reality, quitting their jobs, and joining this dirty, semen-stained, overflowing bathroom protest. Look at this clip here, John.
I quit my job today and found an occupation, and I'm here. I worked for a chain that I got paid minimum wage. I was a wage slave to the worst extent, and I found something enlightening, and this is why I'm here.
So she quit her job to hang out with the dirty hippies, and I say dirty hippies as a scientific observation. They were dirty hippies. She quit her job, and there's sort of a dazed, phased, like she sounds like she's in a cult. I quit my job to follow the charismatic leader. I'm living in squalor, but at least I'm not a slave.
Yeah, and it's like they don't know any of this has been done before. I remember Alexander Herzen, who was quite a radical in Russia, and then realized that there was something wrong with this whole impulse. This is in the middle of the 19th century. And he ended up saying, if only people wanted, instead of saving the world, to save themselves, instead of liberating humanity to liberate themselves, they would do much for the salvation of the world and the liberation of man. And these people have to start by liberating their brains. They've got to think about what they want. If you're radically discontented, give me a reason. Give me an analysis. Give me a program. People have been doing this for hundreds of years, seeking different causes for why man, though born free, is everywhere in chains. Most of them haven't worked out, but there's been a kind of intellectual development based on that and a conversation about it, including between radicals and ex-radicals. These people seem to have missed all of it, and their solution to that isn't to go read a book. It's just to repeat every word somebody says. You couldn't get more belligerently mindless than that, I don't think, if you tried.
You know what? There was a library there with Karl Marx, and they weren't even reading that. They're not even trying to think their way through this. I started singing the old socialist song, Solidarity Forever. They'd never heard it. Like, they are so illiterate. They are a blank slate. That's why they repeat everything they say, even the stuff I told them to. John, we're out of time. Thanks for bringing your analysis today. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it.